All right, so we are ready for our next episode of uh, Open Circle Sessions with I'm gonna I guess we are ready. I can remove that. Boom, we're ready. We're here.
Hello.
So I am Jeremy with CircleCI. We have Katie as well and Angel joining us. We're all from CircleCI. Excited to be here. Thank you for uh, joining our live stream as we embark on this crazy journey that is COVID and live stream videos. So, all right. So this is kind of our open circle session. It's what we call it. They're kind of sessions that we do on a monthly basis that enable kind of the Circle CI community to kind of interact directly with teams here at Circle CI, as well as employees, and discussing all things Circle CI and things in the industry, different technologies. It's also an opportunity for the community to learn the latest and greatest things that are part of CI/CD and especially in our kind of universe, and then also kind of serves as this continuous feedback loop between the community and Circle CI. It's very important for us to be able to hear what others in the community are working on and how we can better serve. So, in today's edition of Open Circle Session, we're going to be discussing all things Hacktoberfest. And if you don't know what that word is, we're going to talk about that very soon.
Sounds scary.
And it is. It sounds scary. It's not like your normal Oktoberfest, which you would have a nice German crafted, Bavarian crafted beer in hand. That's not it. We're going to be talking about that shortly, and how we are participating and what it means. So, and at the end, and really throughout this, we're going to try and be as interactive as possible. So definitely use the chat on Twitch. We're also live streaming on YouTube, and make sure if you have questions, pop them in there, and we will answer them as soon as we can. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and have Katie. Why don't you start by introducing yourself and uh, what was your first in interaction in open source, and maybe what your first time getting involved in Hacktoberfest was.
I mean, all of those things are kind of now. Hello, I am Katie. I am a technical community manager. So basically, I make a lot of friends, and sometimes I know things about engineering, just depending. I have actually been involved with open source for a real long time before I was even in tech, because I had this laptop when I went into college. It was a gift, and it was this old HP. It was very heavy. It came in like a briefcase that I carried, and it didn't run Windows for very long. And I had no money, so I had to learn about open source software. So I sort of started with just some kind of standard like Ubuntu, but then also like open source versions of software. Like I didn't have Microsoft products, so I was trying to use I'm not even gonna remember what it's called now. It changed its name. But
LibreOffice.
Yes, LibreOffice. OpenOffice is what it used to be called.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely had experience using open source software. I've contributed here and there just to things I use, mostly documentation, because I used to be an editor. I had heard of Hacktoberfest because not that many puns get past me. But this is my first time being part of it. So a lot to learn. I'm interested to see what it is about. And great news, Angel can tell us, right? You know what? Why don't you just tell us about you, and then we'll see if you can tell us about Hacktoberfest.
Sure. So yeah, I've been using open source for a very long time. I remember in the 90s when this thing called Linux was coming out, and it was
I think it's pronounced Linux.
It's Linux. If you go, Linus is Finnish. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I thought it was Linus.
No, it's Linus. That's the American Midwest
Oh,
accent, right? Like
there you go. Yep.
you put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. I think.
Would not be the first time I've done that either. So
Yeah, no, it's all good. But yeah, so yeah, I remember that was kind of my first encounter because I was running like at work at the time. I was running on Unix systems, and I was like, oh, I want some of that in my house, and yeah, you couldn't get it without paying like a lot of money for a license. And yeah, this hot new thing came out. It was a kernel, just a kernel, right? And yeah, so that was my first encounter. That's actually how I learned about like all the other things, like the free open source software type world, right? That kind of opens up to me. But yeah, it wasn't very. I want to say it wasn't as easy to onboard or use as it is today. Back then, you really had to know your stuff to get stuff running, right? Like. So I've actually been around for quite some time, obviously. So I've seen the community, and back then I wouldn't even call it a community. It was just like a bunch of people posting things on these bulletin boards, and you can just go there and like get things.
I think that's what a community is.
Wow, they were pretty hostile, right? And I think it's still pretty much like that. But anyway, I would say it's gotten a lot better, but there's still like pockets of these 90s type people, right? Or mentality.
That's fair.
Which is fine. I mean, as long as you know. But anyway, so yeah, I got into using back then we had modems, right? So we couldn't download things like you could today. Using those kernels, and then starting to see how people were contributing to that project, right? So you had the kernel, but then there was no software really, right, to kind of interact with that. And that's kind of the movement started happening in that manner. Started seeing more software available. That was kind of like the work that Richard Stallman and his crew were doing, right? So, there was community being built around that. Then fast forward to, I would say, when Windows 95 started popping on the scene, you started seeing, especially the Linux operating system, right? I think they even commercialized it. They started a company, VA Linux, I believe it was, and they IPO'd and it like took off. Anyway, so that was kind of the birthing of all that. And then companies like Red Hat came on the scene and even made it more popular, right? Like they were basically giving away operating systems and such. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to see where it was and where we are today.
So Angel, I have a question for you. I'm going to interrupt real quick. So
you
talked about your early stages of using open source. You talked about the ways you had to go and get it. Do you remember? And so this is going to be nostalgia for us.
Yeah, let's date ourselves here.
Yeah, we're going to completely.
I'll just have to use my imagination.
Yeah, just nod, just nod with us and say, yes. So do you remember going to the bookstore back when we used to buy books by going into a store, things like Barnes and Noble and Borders and
Babbage's.
Yeah, that's another good one. Walden Books, that's another one. And you would go in and you would go back to the section for technical books. I don't even remember what the thing
computing.
That would be computing. I think that's what it was.
It was computing.
You go back there and you remember this fondly. Good.
Yeah.
That was a nice, perfect from Katie there.
So
you would go back to the and it was usually like the back.
Is that where you rented VHS tapes? I'm confused.
That was around the corner. That was the other side. So you would go
through the curtain.
Back, that's right, to the back of the store, because they evidently wanted all the geeks and nerds to not be seen because they scared off. We usually scared off everybody. But you go back and you'd have these huge, thick books that you would buy that would have a CD on them that would be the boot up that you would use to boot up to choose what Linux you wanted to, of Linux you want to run. The Slackware was kind of that original, I don't want to say the original, but very early ways of getting on to
Yeah,
run Linux on
SCO
your machine.
SCO Linux was one that
SCO.
came in floppies. Yeah, it was.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how they're right. That's exactly right. That's how you would either get it from a CD or a floppy,
Mhm.
or yeah, you found like printed things on these bulletin boards, and then you would either save that to a file or print it out on those dot matrix printers and then type all of
Yes.
that in.
That's right. There is something comforting with the dot matrix printer just sliding across.
The sound of it is kind of nice. I'll say that.
Yes. So,
But anyway, I do remember those days, and that's how most people would get their software and learn how to use it.
Someone in the
have a
chat
book.
says they had a copy of Windows 95 on floppies. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I had the floppies, and if you look at the
There's like 30 of them.
That's right, at least. Angel, you talked about the kernel. Like early on, the license, the way that you used to get it was through floppies, and if you want it, in the CD, there wasn't this big online repositories of source code like GitHub and Bitbucket and whatnot. It was a lot. The entry level or the barriers to entry were huge, and it's why in the GPL v2 license for the Linux kernel, which is still licensed that way, if you want the only enforceable way to get, or the only requirement that somebody that makes a contribution to the kernel has to do, is they have to be able to provide you with the source code, but the bare minimum is I believe, I have to go back and look at it, it's at least the bare minimum is a floppy. Like it's still it's a holdover to the original, is that was the core bit. So yeah, it's good to see where we've come in open source from back then. You used to have the floppies that you'd send around, and you'd get the source code that way.
I understand all of
that. Well, I mean, if you really take a look at what open source is basically people developing things and then sharing it with everyone.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of been, I would say, polluted a little bit with companies coming in and doing patents and trying to kind of claim intellectual property, whatever it is they're doing. I have my opinions on that, but at the end of the day, it's all about building something and then sharing it with the world and letting other folks leverage your code in their projects. Now that's kind of grown into many different things over my career. I've seen, like I said, it's grown into what it is today, and I think it's like anything, right? Any kind of movement, I guess, or any kind of movement.
Yeah, I mean, it's been changing, right?
Right. It goes in its peaks and lows. But I think we're in a plateau, right? Like I think we've been in a plateau personally, as far as like open source community, I guess. People are viewing it in a different way. Back in the day, I remember, companies like Microsoft were like, yeah, open source, ha ha ha, right? Who's gonna maintain? Right. I remember working at places like in the federal government, and they're like, yeah, we can't use open source, it's insecure. I'm like, what? Everybody, they were saying, well, everybody knows what's inside the code. I was like, yeah, that's fine, right? Like, how is that insecure? Yeah. And I think it was more like culturally, people didn't understand. They were used to like the vendor proprietary software. The black box kind of software is what I call it, because right, you don't know what's happening inside. You just get these DLLs or these binaries that are just like pretty much compiled already. And there's ways around that, of course, but that's where open source today is nowhere near what it used to be.
I was reading an article that said that like the majority of contributors to open source projects now are actually paid to work on open source. So they work for some of those companies.
Well,
right?
Yeah. So like that's what happens now with, like, let's take Kubernetes. That's the big dog these days, right? Like, that's a huge project, born out of like Google. They open sourced it, and now you have companies like Google, Red Hat, big companies, right? VMware, all kinds of big multi-million-dollar companies paying their developers to contribute to open source. So that software is freely available to everyone, and people, you know, regular normal humans can contribute. But at the end of the day, you have a higher contribution rate coming from the companies, and you know, I don't know if that's I'm in the undecided camp on if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I can see where, you know, people make arguments that, hey, these companies are actually, you know, moving open source forward, but they're also kind of hurting it, or at least changing it in a way, right?
I'd say it's definitely changing. It's because you do have you know, the importance of, you know, the fact that you can now run Linux on just about every laptop out there. There's some outliers.
Well, it's on your phone,
except the ones that are built for Linux.
Phones. It's on, like there's right, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Well, Linux is everywhere, right?
Yeah, and so it behooves the companies that are creating products to contribute back, because it ultimately, you know, it helps drive sales. So there is a monetization that happens that is, you know, I think it's good, but it also can have, you know, a lot of challenges and a lot of pitfalls.
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, for me, you know, my experience, I've deployed many open source tools to help with like production level, or, you know, just even product level type situations where, you know, things are based off of an open source project that companies then take, right? They fork it, which means you can take an existing code as long as you're not violating the license it was built on, right? You can take that and basically wrap it up into whatever application product you're building, and then sell it, right? And sell that. Right. But you also have to, depending on the license, right? That's the key here is you have to follow the license rules. So if they say you must attribute the core, you know, the core of this project that you're using as a dependency in your product, you must let people know. Guess what? There's open source under the hood.
Well, and so something that was interesting to me is that when I was in school, there was basically this assignment that was just like make a contribution to an open source project, and everyone was very excited about it. But it turned out to be really difficult. And I think this is like one of the problems I think Hacktoberfest sort of helps with, although I would be interested to hear if you agree. Like, I went to like, one, you just have to find things to contribute to, right? Like if someone just tells you like, fine, you know, go contribute. And you don't really know where to start. And there were a lot of things I was interested in, but I would go and look at the issues, and they're deeply complex, contextual things, right? They're not for like someone to just pop in and be like, hello, I'm here to help. They were just like, actually, talking to you would be 1,000 times more work than me doing this complicated thing. So I think Hacktoberfest is a good way to bridge some of that and kind of force people who are in charge of some of these projects to make room for new people. Or make it more approachable, because we were talking, you know, it's like that barrier to entry is tough.
Yeah, and there's, you know, over the years, this is the 6th Hacktoberfest, I believe. Thank you, Trey.
Yeah, somebody's taking a ride.
So,
who's to say?
One of the important things that I've seen happen is we've seen a lot more repositories, a lot more organizations that have popped up that have said that they were gonna, you know, that they're gonna help people make their first contribution to really kind of get a feel for what it means and get that little dopamine of, hey, I've contributed to an open source project. And there's a number of those out there. I'll throw some links in there, but you know, your first PR is one. Awesome for Beginners is another. issue
Yeah, those
hub,
labels are
first
really
time
helpful.
only. Yeah, and these companies, I mean these organizations and groups and communities have really stepped up to kind of try and uh, lower the barrier to get first time to get involved. And I think that's a great thing that I think is out there. I'm going to post some links into
Well,
some of those resources here in
mm.
the chat.
Well, Hacktoberfest, like, I have ties, or used to have deep ties into DigitalOcean. It's kind of the grandfather of the organization, the parent, whatever, the parent organization that started the Hacktoberfest, I guess, theme or event. And I believe most of that was due to the fact that, right, I mean, they're a company, they cater to technology, right? They're a hosting company, which provides you infrastructure similar to other cloud providers. And one of the things I noticed about them was early on, they realized that a lot of their infrastructure and the product was based off of what? Open source technologies. I mean, we're running Linux servers, you're running the systems, and a lot of the underlying software is also open source that they use. So that's a good kind of example of, like, it's bubbling up through the culture of the company, like from product all the way through. And yeah, so they rely on these people being or their customers and folks being developers or system admins or operations folks, right? And yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of open source being used in their products, and what best way, right? Create this kind of event around open source, and then also drive people to kind of say, "Oh wow, it's DigitalOcean," and and their documentation is pretty top notch, right? Like for a long time, when I used to forget a command in Linux or something, I would just type like whatever I was looking for, and for some reason, DigitalOcean was the top return. Now, of course, there's probably some SEO magic in there, but the quality of the content was like spot on, right? Like it was good stuff, and it was from people that I even knew. Some of them I knew who were contributing to that, and they were pretty much Linux badasses. But so Hacktoberfest is definitely a great vehicle for anyone really to kind of learn about open source and kind of easily onboard yourself into that whole experience.
So I just want to get to this question that we had from the chat. What's the last open source project that you contributed to, and what made you decide to dedicate time to it? I do think this comes back to the idea, right? It's like, if it's not part of your day job, it's super hard unless it's like a tool that you need and depend on.
I actually submitted like a few weeks ago to Kubernetes, and
ooh, you fancy.
Well, no, it wasn't to the code base, it was to their documentation. So with all the stuff that's going on in the world today, I was reading one of their documents for something. I was working on a talk, I think, and I saw the word master node, master this, master that all over. So I submitted, hey, why don't we change this to main, especially with the the climate, political climate, and they accepted it. They went back and forth a little bit with me, but it was like, they changed it. So I have a contribution made.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good change to make. I actually used to work at a company called InfluxDB, which makes open source project, and I never contributed to the main code base there because I'm very special. But I did make a lot of tangential projects that are open source to do like data manipulation, things like that. Most of my motivation there was that they paid me, but also I needed. It's really cool to be able to make demos. So
that's right, Adam. We don't need master slave clients on K8s.
We sure don't.
Sorry,
you don't need it anywhere. Primary coordinator, leader, follower. You have so many other options.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, I think it's been I hate to say it, but it's been a while since I've contributed to any particular outside of work things being done for work, because I think there's just so much it's just hard. It's hard to do when it's not your day job. I've contributed a lot of things with documentation primarily, which and we'll talk a little bit more about that I think here later. But you know, that's one of the sometimes forgotten ways to get involved in an open source project is documentation. You know, you don't have to be you know, a really experienced coder. You know, being able to provide issues, document the issues, make changes to documentation, and you know, adding those things that add a lot of value to an open source project. So I want to really shout out there because I think that's often forgotten, especially in projects like, you know, Hacktoberfest. Is we'll make sure that there is the understanding that there are multiple ways to get to contribute.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to add to that is, you know, it's kind of an annoying misnomer for me, at least, or a misconception, I should say, not misnomer. You know, when you want to like contribute to the open source community, doesn't mean you have to go and submit a pull request to Kubernetes or a patch to you know, whatever popular open source project is out there. When you go nowadays, right, in the version control systems, if you make something and you publish it to GitHub, which is what I usually do for demos and stuff I'm working on now, that's contributing to open source, right? And it's your project.
Yep.
And there's another thing that, you know, Katie, you mentioned that you came out of a boot camp, right? So I didn't have GitHub and GitLab and Bitbucket and all these awesome code repositories when I was coming up in my
Where
career.
did you keep your code?
Yeah, on a floppy disk.
Oh.
Were you not listening?
I forgot.
Anyway, so what my point is, though, like, you know, you can also contribute by creating your own thing. And if you're starting out in this industry, I don't care if you're learning on your own, you're self-taught, or you're coming through a boot camp, or you're graduating from an Ivy League, you know, computer science program in one of those colleges or universities. Always, and I used to mentor quite a bit of hackers at hackathons all the time, you know, they're really just starting out. It's just, you have this basically a repository where you can, you know, basically show your history as a developer, right? So everybody's got to start somewhere. And, you know, I used to hear people say, well, I don't like to use GitHub because back then you had to pay for private repos. And I'm like, well, why would you make it private? And they're like, oh, I don't want people to see my junk code. I'm like, so what? Like,
Right,
for me, yeah, when I hired people, especially, you know, younger folks that are coming into the industry, I'd be like, all right, let me see your GitHub. And they would be so like petrified to show it to me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not judging it. I just want to see, you know, how you kind of progress throughout all those years you were studying, or you know, or however many weeks. It's just something to, so my point is, you know, don't be afraid to have junk projects out there. Half the stuff I have on GitHub is just me messing around, right? Trying to learn something new. But the more serious things, right? People can actually go there and see how I develop software. And also it's a progression, right? So where you started and then where you are today. And that's a really nice, it's basically what I'm trying to say is it's part of your resume, I think, in my opinion, right? Now it can be part of your resume, especially if you're starting out and, you know, just don't have that content that you would like to have. Again, people, and if you do take a job or an interview and someone's like, you know, using it and judging it, then you don't need to be working there, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that, like, to your point, Angel, the idea of open source and just generally making more parts of this tech public is that so that we can all benefit from it and like help each other, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And having my probably not very good code up in some various repos, one helps me show my own progression, and when I need help, I can easily ask for it there.
Yeah. I'll just add one kind of example of like one of the contributions I made. So I was working on this project and I was forced to use I'm not going to say the name of the company, but a very, very big old American technology company's software. And I had to deploy this stuff. And we paid thousands and thousands of dollars for the software. And when I went to deploy it, they was like, oh, I needed some help, right? Because I just never used this. And the documentation was just total trash. So when I went to deploy this, they were like, yeah, you need to pay us like, on top of the software license, you have to pay for another like $15K to get support to get the help to install it. Like literally to get into the website to get to the documents. So what I did was, reverse engineer what they had in what I had. And I figured out that they were just using batch files to install this thing. So once I started hacking through the batch files, because by the way, they didn't work. See you later, Adam. The batch files didn't work right out the box because you had to pay for the support to help you fix that. So what I did was I went and fixed it on my own. It took me a while, but then once I did that, I submitted a kind of a nasty email to their CEO, and I said, "Look, I did all this work. I paid all this money. What kind of stuff is happening here?" And I gave them an ultimatum, like, "Look, if you don't respond to me, I'm going to open source what I did." And I did. Eventually, they never responded. I open sourced it, and I tell you, that's one of the repos that I have in my GitHub that people, every now and then, it's the same person like me, right, has to work with this crap, and then boom, they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for doing this," because I wrote up instructions, all that stuff. Anyway, that's my point, though. Like what Jeremy was saying, I think it was Jeremy, right? Saying that people can leverage, or yourself was saying that people can leverage the work people already did. And it's out there. So that's open source and the beauty of it.
Okay, so since I'm new to Hacktoberfest, if I was like, I'm a hacker now, tell me how to get started with Hacktoberfest. You can call me Circuit Breaker or whatever. I don't know. How do you start?
All right, Circuit Breaker. So let me get you.
So here's probably the best way to to get through this. So if you go out to hacktoberfest.com, it's a great way to start. There's a ton of resources there. The way
I can hack that.
That's right. You sign up. Once you've signed up, there are a number of ways that are on their website already of how you can get involved. You can, go in and make pull requests against different repositories. Go find your first pull request to get involved. They have some ways to do that, but it's really any pull request made to any public GitHub repository. That's how this works. That's the bare minimum. Once you've done 4 of those, they don't have to be accepted. They just have to be made. Now,
great news.
Now they do have to be valid. Like you can't go and just do a pull request of,
hello world.
Like that. That's not gonna fly, or that's not a valid pull request. So there is an element of, let's do some work here. But during the month of October, between October 1st and 31st, making those pull requests, those get counted. Once you've made 4, you get they will
pizza
send
party.
You.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
That's right. You get a virtual pizza party. They will send you a special, T-shirt for participating, along with a bunch of different stickers. That does take some time, because if you're talking about 70 to 100,000 people worldwide that are participating, but that's how this works. That's this flow. It's open for anybody. That is one of the biggest keys. The first.
Jeremy, what about CircleCI?
That's right. So what we're doing.
See what I did there, Angel? You listening?
That's good.
Huh? You learning?
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, you really got that segue real good.
That's right.
You hammered that thing right in.
That's right. So
I thought I heard the train coming when
it was me. I'm the train.
So after you've signed up for Hacktoberfest with DigitalOcean, you can go over to our website at hacktoberfest.circleci.com.
Just put it up on the screen, homie.
And we're working on that right now. But yeah, so once we get that set up, Well, it's actually set up.
Yeah.
But we'll
It's
put that one
live, right?
here.
The site is live. They can go visit it
went
and
live today. All right. So once you go there, and let's go ahead and share that out. I have that.
I could do it. I got it here.
it's
You
so
got it, all right.
pretty.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I could, yeah, share my screen. There you go. I got it. I got you. I got you. There you go. Look at that.
Hey.
It's awesome. Let me put it. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm zooming in on the wrong page here. How's that? All right. Look at that.
Much better. It looks
Then you go
a
out
bit
there.
like the Illuminati logo zero. I'll give you that, but it's more like the circle. Well, not
It's
Illuminati.
CircleCI. Yeah.
That's a new ice cream flavor I'm working on for the company.
That's right. There you go. Okay. So yeah. So this website talks about how you can get involved. We have these things called orbs, and they are the easiest way of. They're kind of a package of config of YAML code that shows that's for your pipelines, so that you can simplify getting those set up and getting things tested and deploying as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So.
Whoa!
Ooh, look at that.
Yikes.
Someone said Illuminati too many times.
Yes, that's what it was.
That was
Okay,
my
so-
train. My train came through. Sorry.
That's right. So, Angel, you want to walk us through kind of what an orb is and why you would want to kind of contribute, get involved, and
Yes. Right. So before we even get to like orbs, let's talk about what a pull request is. I mean, I'm
okay.
assuming
Yeah,
there might be
let's
some
actually
people
find out.
watching that. Like that's one of the things that happens. So a pull request, right? So when you have code, let's say, that you go to, I'm just using GitHub as a code repository. It's one of the more popular ones. But when you have code, like I do on GitHub, basically, like it's there and people can do what they call a Git. So Git, Git, is a version control system for files, right? So you can use it not only for code files, you can use it for any file, really. But mainly text, right? So we use that tool to version our work. So if I create some new code and maybe, I want to freeze that version because code always evolves, we use Git to do that. We call it a Git Commit, right? So that basically makes a snapshot of that code at that particular point in time. And it keeps it nicely organized.
It's like a save point, right? In a video
Exactly.
game.
Right, exactly. No, it is for your code. And that allows you to, modify it and mess things up if you want to, or which we tend to do as developers, right? Yeah, when we're working on new things, we're always breaking the old stuff. Then, like, let's say you go too far and you destroy the work that you've done, you can always say, oh, you know what? Screw all that. I'm just going to go back to my save point and start my session over with that code.
Yeah.
So that's what, Git committing code is snapshotting. And then once we have a terminology called pushing it upstream. So if you look at GitHub, it's kind of like the central repository. So that's where, if you're working on teams, everyone kind of contributes back up into that code base. So if you're committing locally on your laptop and you're making changes to that code, you can push that, right? Those changes up to another, like, I would say we call branch, which is another snapshot of the entire code base. So there's that's how it works, right? Version control is about versioning, which means you have to take snapshots in time of code, right? The cool thing is you can choose when to do that when you feel like your code base is good, and that gives you the ability again to roll back. Anyway, when you push that code upstream, you have this thing living in GitHub, and you're able to now write. Or anyone, if it's open, by the way, if the project is open to the public, right, then you can make changes to that. Anyone who's on the GitHub platform can make changes to that. Now, what a pull request is actually, like, let's say Katie just has a project online. I see it, and she has a bug in her project that I'm using, or that product that I'm using, or the project, that I'm using. I know how to fix it for Katie, so I can go ahead, make a snapshot of her existing branch, which is like the code base, and then I can work locally on my machine, fix that patch or fix that problem, patch it. We call it, when you fix a problem, we use the term patching, and then I could submit that fixed code up to Katie's repository. And the way that I submit that fix is by, I push it to my branch, and then I say, hey, Katie, with the pull request, it basically communicates to Katie that Angel made some changes that fix a bug in your software. So Katie, as the project maintainer, can say, oh, Angel sent me a fix. Here's a pull request, right? It's basically that process of communicating with the maintainer. So, that's what we mean by pull requests. So, they can review the changes. They can see what's happening. Maybe my change does fix a bug, but I may have introduced another one. And she can say, hey, Angel, this is great, but you also created a new bug. And Katie can either fix it and accept my patch, right? Or she can say, can you help fix this bug that you made, depending on what it is. It's all about communication, to be fair. So
I find the PR process, the pull request, is really like a very communicative process, right? Like you submit a pull request, and then I say, you are solving my problem, but I actually don't use, none of the rest of my code looks like this, and it's a little confusing. Could you maybe write it to look like this other file?
In essence, it's a collaboration. Pull request is equivalent to collaboration around changes in code, right? So just look at it that way. And then once everything's nice and tight, we can go back and forth. And Katie's happy with my changes. She can approve it and then merge it into what they call the main code base, which is like the gold seal. This is the stamp of approval, right? So whenever anybody makes what we call a clone, which is their own, a clone is like saving as, right? Bringing that repo as your own, it's completely disconnected, right? Then right. So when you make a clone, you have your own kind of snapshot, and it's not even connected, right? You can even create a new project based off of that, depending on Katie's license. But to get back
about that open source.
But let me get back to the original. I went down a rabbit hole.
So what is an orb?
It was just bugging me that we're throwing these terms around, and there are going to be some new people. Anyway, so let's go talk about orbs.
The question is that one of the challenges is that people can make PRs, pull requests, to orbs, or create their own orb, which also still involves making a pull request. So what is that? What is that?
Yeah, so CircleCI, right? We're pretty much a proprietary system, and Orbs is it's a product and a feature. To me, they're like two things, and Orbs. So let me take a step back. When you're working with conventional continuous integration systems, they use some sort of syntax to build out pipeline, which is basically controlling the automation that we're offering as CircleCI, right? So instead of having to learn a programming language, we use a data structure called YAML. Now, YAML stands for what? Yet another markup language or something?
Yeah, I think it does.
But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of folks that have a love-hate relationship with it. But I just want to say that YAML is not a programming language. It is a data structure, just in the same vein as JSON, but using different syntax and concepts. But so whenever, like CircleCI's product, if you want to control your define, specify, and control your pipelines, you have to submit a YAML file with your project. Mm-hmm. That's fine. So we have a way for people to execute their pipelines, define them, and then execute them using those configuration files. And what our system does is ingest ingest that YAML, right? Reads it, compiles it into a data structure that we understand, and then executes your builds off of that. What was happening was the old form of YAML was becoming, since YAML is a data structure, it's not a programming language. There's a lot of repeat going on in that YAML file, which makes things like unmanageable to a point, right? So we had customers and clients that were like, oh, well, I can't manage this configuration file anymore because it's tens of thousands of lines, right?
Right.
And that's all necessary. So in order to kind of help with that, I call it pipeline sprawl. We decided to create on the CircleCI system a mechanism for being able to leverage parameterization. So what that means is now YAML, yes, it's a data structure, but with CircleCI's platform, we gave the capability to create syntax that helps kind of build out encapsulation, right? So we're using object-oriented programming concepts now within our YAML. So you can create things that are reusable, right? And that's all that parameterization does is you can create, like, let's say you have a pattern, like let's say you're uploading to S3 every time, right? Something happens in your pipeline. You don't have to now have those upload S3 commands, littered through the syntax, redundantly littered through. Now you can just do like an include statement for an orb, right? And that's what orb is. We basically package up that parameterization, encapsulate it, and then you're now able to just use that functionality in like 2 or 3 lines, and you just change the value of whatever parameter it is that needs to change.
Is it fair to say that an orb is just a section of reusable config?
Right. So reusable, reusable config with parameters.
So okay.
Right. Exactly. But I'm not going to spoil it for everyone, but there are some cool changes coming October 1st that I learned about just I think yesterday, which I've been kind of looking forward to. So basically it's your config file on steroids, right? And the reason I say that is you now have the ability to parameterize values that were not parameterizable. I guess I made that up,
parameterizable.
Yeah, unparameterizable, whatever. But yeah, you weren't able to do that before. And Orbs is just a nice way to package up all of that configuration. Now you can parameterize your YAML with CircleCI and not use an orb, right? Like you don't have to do that. But what the orb does is enables you to like keep things nice and tight, right? And centrally manage that in a location, right? Like a centrally managed location, like the orb registry. So what some of our team has done is built out we have a lot of customers that are shared with other vendors, like AWS, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our customers deploy from our pipelines into their AWS infrastructures. So we have orbs that enable them to do that easily by implementing the AWS CLI, right? And then our orbs basically give you easy ways to leverage some of that functionality without having to rewrite, all that code that you would have to write on your own.
So it's the same principle as like adding a module or a library to your code. Is that
exactly
true?
Yeah, okay. Right, exactly. And it's functionality.
Yeah.
So I know we got 10 minutes, but I can try to find I guess a sample here. Let me see if I have anything orb related. I can pull something up. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a nice way to give our users and developers an opportunity to better manage their pipelines, because they're really important these days. I mean, the stuff we're doing is pretty amazing with how we're developing software, how we're deploying, and the easier we can make that on people is really cool. So let me share my screen if I can find. Let me move you over here. I'm all over the place with these monitors. All right, share screen. Where is it? Here we go. Not that. Gotta love these tools. Here we go. So I have some code I'm working on. Can we see that?
Make big, please. Yeah,
sure. Let me get rid of this here. So this is a config file that has one of our vendors or our partners called Sneak. So this is a config file. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I want you to focus in on is how you would include an orb, right? So we have this orb syntax here. All this is saying is, hey, CircleCI, in this pipeline config file, I want to include a list of orbs. So whenever you see this orbs key here, it's just a list, right? And again, remember, YAML is declarative data structure. So, and then when I'm saying I want to use this sneak orb, right? And this is actually the namespace on our system. I'm just giving it a name of sneak. And then I'm telling it I want to use version whatever, 0.0.12. Now, this is managed, by the way, by our partners, especially the ones that have a tag of partner. Sneak is a security scanning tool. It's pretty awesome. They're pretty much an open source tool as well. But I leverage them a lot in my pipeline. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's say I want to scan an application, right? Normally I would have to let's see, jump down to the steps section. So I would run a sneak command. Right here, I'm just saying I'm going to echo, which is just like kind of a little message in my build. And then this is the implementation of that orb. So I'm using that orb, right? And it's pretty simple, right? So I'm just telling it, hey, I want to run this sneak orb, and I want to use the scan, execute the scan function. And I have to supply it a couple things, like where I want to run the code against, because this is a monorepo project. So I have a couple applications running. And then, you control like the toggle flags, right? So with Sneak, if I didn't have this orb, I would have to run a couple extra steps that are very, kind of cumbersome. But with this, it makes it a lot easier for people to integrate our partners' tools into their pipelines.
So the documentation would then include right, you said, I want to use the scan functionality, like
Right.
I don't know if I want to say functions, but I think that's maybe like misleading, but like the executions you can make are available in the docs for the orb, right? So if we want
Right, yeah. So I could share some of that. Let me bring that up just real quick.
Which would be one of the requirements if you were going to write an orb, right? You want to be
exactly
providing people like what parameters do they need to know, what is available, like what does this do? Yeah,
so I just showed you a use case where I would use an orb, right? An existing orb. We also, so that was the other part what I was trying to say earlier was CircleCI, again, we're a proprietary, for the most part, proprietary platform, but we do obviously, right, we're providing services for developers. So we want to contribute some sort of project that helps make developers' lives easier. And orbs was an easy kind of kill for us to, or an easy topic or product to produce so that we can, enable developers, right, to contribute to their own kind of pipelines and how they work. So let me look for orbs registry real quick, and then we'll jump into real quick. I think
in the same way that like all Ruby gems live on like rubygems.org, all the orbs live in the orb registry. When you publish an orb, there it is.
And I was trying to find, where's my application? There you go. This is jumping around on me like loco here. All right, where are you? Here we go. Cool. So if you could see that, right? Basically, you would go to like circleci.com/orbs, and you can, basically check out what's going on. If you want to explore the orbs, this is the registry that I was talking about. As you can see, we have these tags. Certified means CircleCI's team is building and maintaining these. And if you see a partner tag, that means the company or the vendor that produces that product is maintaining their orb, right? And so it's pretty cool because we are not the experts in other people's technology, so it's nice that they keep theirs. Here's the sneak orb I was showing you earlier, and here's the documentation, right? So like I use the scan command right here. So there you go, right? Like this gives you all the parameters and the things that you need to kind of give it to make it run. And here's the defaults, and this will tell you if it's what's required, what parameters are required. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's any, which is cool. So yeah, that's how you would use it. Now, let's say that's great, Angel, but I want to create my own orb so that I can do my own specific things. And as you can see, just to wrap up with this, every orb that's hosted on our registry, you can see the source code, right? So you can actually, if you wanted to, contribute during Orbtoberfest or Hacktoberfest, Orbtoberfest, whatever we're calling it. You can actually contribute either modifications or maybe you see something that's like a bug. Yeah, you could fix it and submit it. And by the way, this is all right going up to GitHub. But every vendor has their own kind of, and here's the link, right? So if you want to go to the source, it's on GitHub, and you can contribute because it's an open project, right? And you just contribute, and let's say, yeah, you make a change, you go to a branch, yeah, you would just create a pull request right here, pull request, right? New pull request, and pick which branch you're working off of, and then go to town. But we want to talk about really, really quickly. You can develop your own. And where is the documentation for that? Let's go to, developers. So we have that nice new developer landing page. Anyway, I'm going to click on orbs. Oh, it just takes you back to there. So how to use an orb, that's fine. But where's the...
I think there's a link in the...
This is a new page to me. I haven't seen
Yeah.
Okay, so here's just go to that page and you can see, but where's the developer?
I think you have to go to /developers, circleci.com/developers.
Oh, okay. That's where I was, wasn't it?
I wish I knew.
All right. No, you were wrong.
Okay, well,
That's okay.
Like
It's
I've been
okay.
wrong before.
Yeah, no. Yeah, here we go. I did it. There you go. You were right. I just didn't click on the right thing.
Oh, okay.
So if you go to CircleCI for just developer, I put an S. So yeah, you can get a lot of information here. This is pretty new. We just launched this not too long ago, but I'm trying to find where we can do some orb stuff real quick. But yeah, I don't see it.
There's a lot of document.
While you're kind of looking at that, documentation does have some info on how to get started on that. But one piece with the new, as part of the challenges to participate in our Orbtoberfest, I can say that.
You got there.
We do have the Orb Development Kit, which will allow you to get started with orbs really, really quickly. That is coming very soon. It'll be ready by October 1st. That you'll be able to get started to create your own orb, and that'll be coming here very shortly.
That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Was the team has put together a new way to so. Previously, creating an orb was a little bit cumbersome, but our orb development team has put together a new way to ease that for developers. Yes. And I just got a glimpse of that yesterday, and yeah, it's leaps and bounds better than even last year's. We participated in Hacktoberfest, so I know they're going to be doing something around that on the 1st. So look out for those announcements about the new orb development kit, I guess we'd call it. I'm not sure what they're naming it, but yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm actually going to try to start building out demos using a lot more of that orb capability, and I'm glad to see like the changes that they've made to the system, to help ease that, because it's. Again, we're in these orbs are in a peculiar place, because as developers, you want to start writing execution commands for your automation quickly. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's YAML, right? So it's not a programming language, so that becomes a little bit more of a struggle for folks who are well, Angel, I just want to get this thing going. But orbs, will help you get that customization. And by the way, anything that you build in a community, from the community sense, will be available to everyone. And also, I did a stream not so long ago with a CircleCI community member called Rupak, and he built a monorepo orb, which is actually really popular on the orb registry. There's some companies that actually use it. Yeah. So you can do the customization bit. So when you're developing orbs, there's going to be, like there's going to be times where maybe there's just not an orb to help you do it as it is that you want to do, or maybe there's just some functionality that is specific to your use cases. You can build that and encapsulate that, and then manage all of that in one place, right?
Yeah, and we're taking questions. Like if you run into a problem, you can come hang out with us on our community forum. There's a thread there where you can ask questions if you just don't know how to get started. We're here to help. This isn't your only hour of our time. You have all of Hacktober.
And I think you have all of our Twitter handles in our names. So like, don't be shy, right? So if you have a question, you can ping Katie and Jeremy all day long.
Yes, for sure. And what I wanted to kind of also touch on real quickly is, participating in Oktoberfest on our side, the specific pieces on how you do that. It is, we try to make this as easy as possible. 2 different ways to get involved. One is, if you already have a CircleCI config out there, or you have, work with one or know of one that already is out there. People are already using CircleCI, and are not using orbs. For instance, they're implementing and testing with Node.js, but they're not using the Node.js orb. They're actually, building out config files without it. You can actually submit a PR against that to go ahead and start using the specific orb, whatever it might be.
Yeah, orb it up.
If that gets merged if that gets merged or accepted, that counts. 1 to 3 of those PRs receive a sticker pack, which will have a number of our new stickers, as well as the Hacktoberfest themed sticker. I'll show a couple examples of some stuff here in a few seconds.
We have real amazing designers, so you're going to want this stuff.
Yeah. And then once you've hit those 4 PRs for us on kind of the things that we're offering, you'll receive the stickers and a t-shirt. So that will be really, really interesting.
Is it that t-shirt from, if you scroll up, right? Show them the t-shirt.
We're going to get there. Yeah.
Is that the one? There you go. Look at that.
That is the sticker. It's what the stickers and the t-shirts look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other side is, if you develop and publish an orb on our, using the Orb Development Kit, which is coming soon, hopefully, like I said, by October 1st. And it is something that offers value. It's not just a hello world orb. It's something that's actually doing something and provides value back to community and to others. Then you get the sticker pack, you get a t-shirt, and you get a limited edition orb magic pin, just a nice enamel pin that you can put on your backpack, wear it on your lapel.
And maybe people will think you're in the Illuminati.
There you go. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to kind of throw that around. So that's how you get involved. And the best way, once you've done that, is you go over here and you pull up the form that walks you through with us putting in your pull requests, putting in.
Man, somebody went fancy.
Yep. And that way we're able to verify who you are, verify your information, and verify that you did the pull requests. And once that's done, we're able to, we'll get that, you'll get a link that you'll be able to download. You get a link that you'll be able to go and put in your information to get your swag and your thank you from us for participating. So,
this was
like already mentioned, go out there, join the discussion out on Discuss, and there is a topic. Oh, I need to update that. There is a topic already in place for this. That
there is.
Will. Yep, I just included the wrong link, so
fix
that. But get in there and start having some questions. participating as get involved in our Hacktoberfest. So thank you very much. Any last words from Angel or Katie?
Hack the planet.
There you go.
Yeah. So if anyone's like gonna try this and you're a newcomer or whatever, or maybe your experience, Orb's like it's going to be new to a lot of people. Just ping us or ping me on Twitter. Glad to help. Get you a free t-shirt and some pins.
Always.
But don't look at it like that way only. I think if you're going to build an orb, think about a problem that you can solve for yourself and your pipelines, right? Like something that you're doing. One of the things I like to do is just identify repeated patterns, right? Like redundant patterns inside of my builds, and how can I streamline that so that just makes it a little easier, more consistent within your builds. And then like if something goes wrong, now you got a one-stop shop kind of place to go to, especially if that functionality breaks, right? So there's a couple reasons why, but and believe me, it's not something that is easily to get your head around as far as like orbs goes, because again, right, people get two things conflated. Using orbs and developing orbs are two different things, so just keep that in mind, right, when you're dealing with this.
And just ask every question you have. We're here. I will make sure personally that you get an answer, because it's my job.
And she wants to.
Because I want to, and I like you.
That's right. All right. Thank you very much, all of you, and those that joined, watching, and interacting with us. Again, look forward to seeing all of the great contributions that you all bring to the ecosystem. All right. Thank you very much.
If anybody has ideas, just hit me up, and we'll hack together if I have the time.
Hack the planet.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Did he just leave us alone? What the fuck? Oh, I guess it's still live.